Ever met a magician? Somebody that practices real magic? What do you think they might look like? Pointy hat, Harry Potter scar on the forehead? Well, today I'm in conversation with Gary M Vasey, a very interesting magician and author. This enjoyable interview is in two parts. We talk of castles and dragons, of issues of trapped energy and of earth energy flowing across the land, manifesting miracles, and of course, life in general. We all know about manifesting, about creating our own reality, but how it is that what we believe will most likely crop up in our lives, either due to psychological bias or a deep spiritual belief. But have you ever thought about the implication of that for the wider environment? My name's Tim Walter. I'm a house healer and an alternative life coach. On this channel I show you how to reach a greater sense of well-being through simple, practical, spiritual practices such as meditation, mindfulness and dowsing. I use these in my work. House healers bring peace to a space to help the well-being of those living in the space. Here on this channel, that's what we look at, creating inner harmony to help bring change in the outer world. Have a look round at a few videos. You might be surprised by what you see. Today, this is part one of the conversation with author Gary M Vasey. Keep your eyes open for part two coming soon, and I'll be interested to know if magic is what you thought it was, so do leave a comment in the section below. Now here then is Gary and I in conversation a few weeks ago on a video call. Gary, thank you so much for agreeing to have a chat with me this morning. Obviously, we spoke a little while ago when you interviewed me for your channel. One of the things we touched on was how you approach life from that viewpoint of magician, and that was the thing that really piqued my interest, and I wanted to talk to you about, because this process of the way that we work with subtle energies and the subtle elements of life really is absolutely fascinating to me. And of course, that traditionally is the role of the magician. So we'll get into that in a bit more detail in a minute, but can you first sort of just help us, fill us in? Who are you? What do you do for a living? And how on earth did you get into this role of working with subtle energies?
Well, what I do for a living is always a bit problematic. I'm an analyst in the commodity trading risk management software arena. And I co-own a company with a colleague in Houston, Texas. And it's really tough to explain to laymen what it is we do. So we'll just push that to one side. I'm one of these people, though, that's very creative. So on the side, I write a lot of poetry, I write a lot of books, I blog, I collect ghost stories with a website. I go around the countryside looking for magical places and earth energies, I dowse, I take photographs, I make music. I just got myself all the time creating things. And especially now when, you know, COVID-19 keeps us close to home and away from family, having kind of hobbies that keeps me sane. So, you know, the more I'm sat at this desk, the more I'm looking to find things to create, to communicate with people in a different way. So I actually do call myself like an artist, because somebody once told me here in the Czech Republic, "Oh, you're such an artist." And I thought they were being rude, you know, because I'd had a few beers. But they really meant it. And I realized that, you know, that there was quite some accuracy in that statement. I suppose I'm a bit of an artist, even though I have a scientific background. So it's really, you know, that, and magic is something that I came into because of fear. So growing up, I experienced poltergeist activity, ghosts. I saw things. I had a little bit of an unusual childhood in that respect. And I would sleep with the lights on and the covers over my head. And I was really scared of this, you know, whatever it was. And I think that in retrospect, these things sense the fear anyway, and will respond to that fear. So, well, when I got to the point in life where I had some time, I started, I'd always been interested in magical type books. So I read, you know, all the novels and stories you would expect, the Lord of the Rings and stuff like this. I always had that kind of an interest. And I also read a lot of books by very strange people growing up and into my early adulthood. So lots of books on magic and fairy tales and that kind of thing. But once I found that I had the time, I started to do some investigative work around actually studying in a school of magic. And cut a long story short, I eventually found a school called the Servants of the Light, run by a beautiful lady in the Channel Islands called Dolores Ashcroft Nowicki. And I signed up for their 5-year correspondence course. And basically this course took you through how, meditation, some Arthurian type themed visualizations, Kabbalah, magic techniques, this kind of thing. The end of that 5-6 year correspondence, attended an event run by the SOL in the UK, because at the time I was living in Texas, and was initiated into the school, first degree and a bit second degree, and I started to supervise some of the students for the school as well at that point. And this activity made me realize that in my younger years, I'd been lit up like a Christmas tree on the other side, attracting all the astral flotsam to me because of my fear. And since then, I've had really, touch wood, no issues. And I even collect ghost stories and write books about ghosts and black-eyed kids and all kinds of weird, wonderful topics. People actually ask me, how do you sleep at night? Well, I sleep very well, thank you, because I just don't think about that stuff. And when you become part of a community and you write a few books as well, maybe that gives you a bit of maybe a reputation for certain things, then you become part of a much broader magical community, and you find out there's many, many schools like that out there, and there's a lot of people that are quite visible, working in various ways magically to try to educate anybody that's interested or attract people that are interested. And so I know quite a lot of those people. I interviewed many of them for my own little show, as you said. And I'm a solo practitioner these days. I do my own thing. I'm not sort of hooked into any particular group or methodology or approach. I just do my own thing, and I'm very happy with that.
And it's a fantastic, great summary of where you've been going. I'm interested to know, did your sort of fear, the experiences you were having as a child, I imagine that they were when you were pre-teen, I'm assuming. When were they location associated? So when you moved away from home at that time, or I mean, tell me a little bit more about how that.
Yeah, I mean, they were location oriented, but they also followed me. So my first experience, which I've talked about quite a lot, is when I was a very small child. I was in my bedroom in the back of the house trying to sleep. And the story, as I understand it, is that my mum and dad downstairs heard a bang and then a scream, and they came running up the stairs, and they found me crying, sat up crying and shaking. And I told them that a little green man had jumped out the mirror of my wardrobe, shot me with a gun, and jumped out through the glass window.
Wow.
And that was my first experience. And my father would tell me quite often that what was really amazing about it was they heard the gunshot downstairs. They heard the bang. Yeah. And I think that was some kind of a nature spirit, just having fun with me. And from there, started with poltergeist activity and a ghost of a cavalier in the house. Turned out we were living on an area that had been an estate in the 1600s, and so there was some feasibility that there would be that kind of a person from that era in that location, even though it was a fairly modern house. And then when I went to college and things like that, I had other experiences, even in student accommodation.
So even at that age, as a student, so 18 to 21-ish, you were still quite wary. You were still quite scared of this sort of activity, were you?
Oh, very, very much so. Yeah, my next door neighbour was a Catholic, a very fundamental Catholic, and I remember I was very worried because he drew pencil crosses on all 4 of the walls of my room. He thought that somehow this would help me. Actually, it terrified me that I was going to have to pay for the, you know, the damage to the accommodation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
I mean, as it turns out, I guess I'm you know, psychic, so I quite often see things. I mean, even now, I quite often see things, hear things, but usually it's a very different kind of experience now. So, for example, a couple of 3 years ago, I was with two magical friends. We were visiting a stone circle up on the Scottish borders, and a little bit of a ritual in the circle. We reactivated the circle, I suppose. And it was in the middle of nowhere, as you can imagine, on a moor, and with a long walk up towards it. And I said to my two friends, oh, look, someone's joined us, because I saw this lady step out from behind the stones and walk towards me with a big smile on her face and her arms out like this. And then I realized that, you know, she was dressed kind of inappropriately for a winter's day. She was in a very flowing robe, and just faded away, you know, and I really thought it was a real person at first. And my two friends were looking down the path into the distance. I don't see anybody, you know.
Right. Excellent.
And then when I told them, they said, oh, it's probably the spirit of the stones, you know, thanking us for reactivating, using them to the purpose they were meant for, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That was my thought.
So that's the kind of experience I have now.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. It's lovely. It's lovely that you've got that clairvoyance to that level. I don't have that very often these days at all, and I'm kind of envious of people that do in some ways. But you've used the expression magical people for a start there, associating with magical people and magic. How would you describe being a magician then? If you were to say to somebody, actually, well, what I do is I'm a magician. It's not like it was in the old days. X, Y, Z.
Well, I think that the definition of magic varies quite considerably. I mean, what it's not is Harry Potter. You know, it's not muttering a few words, a flash of light, and something happens. For me, anyway, magic is exploring yourself, exploring your inner self, and I believe that what we reflect, in a sense, the macrocosm, the microcosm, we reflect ourselves into the world. So what I see and what I experience in the outer world is simply a reflection of my inner world. And so it involves a lot of meditation and a lot of deep, a lot of magical techniques to try to flush yourself out, to try to understand yourself, to try to deal with some of the issues that you might find with yourself. For example, you know, to be quite honest, I'm prone to anger. So at the moment, I'm trying to figure out, you know, where this anger comes from, why I have to deal with this anger, and how to neutralize it. Because, you know, I get pretty uptight about the restriction, COVID, and climate change, because I'm a scientist, and I get upset when people tell me that science is proven, because as a scientist, I know that science is always a hypothesis and never proven. And that kind of stuff really grates on me, you know, it's like, it annoys me. So I'm trying to figure out, you know, what causes this and how to neutralize that, or at least push it in a different direction. So it's about trying to understand yourself, and eventually I think you realize that you are part of one thing, that we're all one thing, we're all connected, everything's connected. It was like today, I mean, another thing that sometimes bugs me a little bit is this idea that humanity is a virus or a blight on the planet. And I try to tell people, well, you know, that's not quite right, because we're part of the whole thing. We are part of the earth. And the way we behave, how do you know that's not part of the earth spirit's plan, you know? For to call us a virus, I think is you're doing something, you're reflecting thing on humanity that you shouldn't be. You know, you're reflecting this negativity when you should be reflecting positivity. Yes, there's a lot we can do to improve. I agree, but we're not a virus. We're a part of the one thing. We're an expression of the planet, and our behavior, you know, might be part of a plan, and you know, that we don't understand. So just be careful what you say and what you wish for, because magic is real. what you believe inside and what you think about manifests. And if you think unconsciously, you manifest unconsciously. And I know that a lot of people don't believe that, but I think belief is also a part of it. If you don't believe it, then you're not going to manifest because you don't believe you can. It's the same argument. And this is why I think that, you know, when you look at doing ghost hunting or dowsing, maybe, and you have that one person who says, this is impossible, it's bullshit, it's nonsense, it's not going to happen. It doesn't. And it's because that one person's rejection is strong and influencing everything else. This is what I've found anyway. And so imagination, desire, or will is all part of being a magical person. And projecting your will, it's not a bad thing, because hopefully your will is aligned with the will of the people upstairs that govern things. But projecting your will to change your environment, it starts with changing yourself. If you don't change yourself, you can't change the environment. And so I tend to, you know, I operate on two levels. The normal Gary, who will forget all of this when I'm working away at my commodities trading risk management job, and wonders why my computer refuses to cooperate, you know, and then I step back and think, hang on, magical hat on. I'm being told something here. What is the lesson I'm supposed to learn from this? And I find it very difficult, even though I call myself a magician, to stay in a magical frame of mind. You're constantly being dragged back by COVID, the news, kinds of things, just dragging you back into this mundane consciousness that's not magical at all. And trying to stay in a magical state of mind is very, very difficult. And that's why I think it is important, and I remind myself yet again, to meditate on a daily basis, because that helps you stay within a magical consciousness or a magical framework. So to me, that's magic. Occasionally it does involve a little ritual, you know, dressing up and acting out, because that helps reinforce the idea in your head that you're trying to create in the outer world. There's nothing wrong about doing a little ritual and acting out and saying some strange words. If it helps with the imaginative process and it helps with the will, then it can be very effective. But I'm not that much of a ritual magician. I'm more of a solo practitioner, and I'm more of a person that wants to get out into nature and with the earth energies. So I'm always looking for the dragons.
Always looking for the dragons. That's a really interesting summary of what you were describing there. I have to say, Gary, that your description there of what magic is to you was absolutely fantastic. That really is. I mean, not only was it very eloquent, so therefore we can tell that you're a writer, but also it absolutely spot on in alignment with what I feel about the way that I work with subtle energies, and introducing this concept of working with the inner world to influence the outer world, because this is to a very large extent just illusory but real at the same time. So excuse my dog, won't you, in the background there, he gets quite noisy. So really interesting to hear your interpretation of what magic is, because I don't consider what I do in terms of house healing and working with those subtle energies as magic, but it is, you know, that is definitely another label for it.
I would consider it very, very magical. What you do is very magical. I've watched a lot of your videos and a lot of your techniques, and you approach it in a different way in terms of your descriptive terminology, but I would call it magic.